The following podcast contains movie spoilers and mature content, including graphic descriptions of violence. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Opening Kill, the podcast that dives deep into the chilling world of horror films. Every Thursday, we explore a different movie, from cult classics to modern masterpieces, uncovering behind-the-scenes secrets, analyzing themes, and sharing fun facts about your favorite horror films. Join us as we chat with filmmakers and fellow horror film fans to celebrate the fear in cinema. And now, the hosts of Opening Kill, Michael Doran and Brian O'Connor.
Brian O'Connor, how goes it?
Michael Doran, it goes well.
Fantastic.
How go things with you?
Oh, quite swimmingly.
Swimmingly, a new word for you.
Yeah, I looked it up this morning and I've been using it as often as possible.
Welcome to Opening Kill, episode 7.
Lucky number 7.
Lucky number 7. We're going to talk about a movie I have been a fan of since it came out almost 26 years ago.
26 years ago? Jeez.
Yeah, a movie, little known movie called The Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, that's not influential or anything.
Not at all. Not at all. A found footage film, one of the first ones. Not the first one, but the first one that I think people know.
Yeah, it's definitely the original, big hitter.
Absolutely. It made a shit ton of money. They made it so anywhere between $24,000 and $60,000 initially is what they made this for. And it went on to make over $250 million worldwide, making it one of the most profitable independent films ever made.
Yeah, I mean, and most of that budget was probably on camping supplies.
I was going to say, yeah. I was watching through the credits and all the different names that are rolling through. And I'm like, okay, some of these are investors, obviously, but I think some of the actual crew members, all family and friends who worked for free, worked for food, because you couldn't pay this many people on a $60,000 budget without everything else you had to pay for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So no.
Well, we want to thank all of our listeners, all of our new listeners. We have new listeners that popped up in Texas this past week.
Yeah.
Also, listeners in the quality state of Wyoming.
Right. Holla.
There you go.
Holla at Wyoming.
So we are very grateful for you joining us on the Opening Kill podcast as we continue to grow. We could not do this without your support. So big thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
I saw a very interesting movie yesterday.
Yeah.
This is a movie that was part of the scare preview, my scare preview pick a few episodes ago, called The Damned. So I went and saw this. And I know after it was over, I texted you and I said, I'm not sure. I've had a few hours, to think about it. And actually, I think it was better than what I initially thought it was. It takes place in about 1870 in this fishing outpost in the Arctic Ocean.
Right.
And it's about this fishing crew that's there. The post is run by a woman. She's a widow. Her husband owned it, and then he died in a fishing accident the year previous, but she still runs this, and she rents this out to other fishing groups. And so they're set up there. They're getting ready to launch a boat when they see another sailing vessel in the mouth of the cove sink, and there's debate whether or not they want to go out there and save the sailors because they can hear them screaming. But the argument against it is, first of all, we don't have enough supplies to sustain more people in our camp because the fishing year had been abysmal.
Okay.
So they had no food for even themselves hardly, let alone who knows how many survivors are out there.
Plus it's cold.
You
don't
cold.
want to get wet. And
are they going to swamp the boat when you row out
True,
there? And
yeah.
so they decided not to. Well, later that evening, a sealed box of food washes up on shore. So they're like, oh, what if there's more? We better get it before it drifts out to sea. So they go out there, boat gets swamped. And anyway, they basically kill the people that are trying to swamp the boat, the survivors. They paddle them and kill them. And well, the bodies wash up on shore and the ground is too frozen because it's the middle of winter.
Yeah.
So they just put them in their coffins and they don't bury them because they can't dig into the ground. Then weird shit starts to happen.
Okay.
Actually, it's a great concept, very atmospheric, very claustrophobic.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. I really did. I was very critical coming out of it. And I think because the ending was so abrupt, I mean, so abrupt. All of a sudden, it's like cut to black and there's the credits, and you're like, what the hell happened?
Does it wrap? Does it not wrap anything up?
It does, but it goes rapid fire, and then it's like black, and you're sitting there in the dark, and they give it a few beats, and then the credits, and there's not really any music right away, and you're like, whoa, what? This can't be the end, and it was the end.
Yeah.
I mean, it does come to a logical conclusion.
Okay. Well, I mean, as long as there's a somewhat of a conclusion.
There was, but I kind of left it going, man, did I like that? And like I said, I text you. I'm like, don't waste your time. And now I'm thinking, maybe I judged it a little too harshly.
So should I waste my time?
You should waste your time on it now. Yeah, I thought it was actually pretty good. Limited release. It's in under 1,000 theaters.
Oh, we got it.
And we got it here in our town, but it's
Shout
not
out.
everywhere. I know. It was like 937 theaters, as where something like the Lion King movie is in like 3,900 theaters right now,
'cause
or
we
whatever.
needed that one.
Yeah, right. And while I'm talking about going to the movies, can I get on my little soapbox and
Please
talk
do.
about people that misbehave in movie theaters?
I could talk about this for hours.
my
This could be
God.
its own podcast.
It
Brian.
really could be. I'll tell you, it's gotten to the point now where when I go to a movie in a theater, I tend to pick the least populated showing of the film. And if that means going to a movie at 10:30 at night on a work night,
I'll do it.
I'll do it. So, I went online, picked my seat, and I basically picked an end seat. There weren't very many people there. The nearest people down from me were like 10 seats, 12 seats away. So all right,
That's
cool.
pretty good.
So I'm good. So about 25 minutes into the film, this father and this son who were sitting in the row in front of me, apparently, because at Cinemark, our theater, you can't see the people in the row because they've got the barrier,
it's nice
and
little
it's
dividers.
Yeah, exactly. So they stood up. I'm like, what are these guys? Well, it was an 8-year-old kid. I'm like, well, maybe it's, the father realized maybe not the best movie for my 8-year-old.
Yeah, maybe he peed his pants or something.
Maybe. I mean, now I'm not judging because when I was 8, I stumbled into Halloween when my sisters were watching it on cable. But anyway, so they get up and they walk down their row, and then they look at my row, and I'm like, oh, don't you even. What are you moving for? Don't even. They did. They came up into my row, and they're on the opposite side. There's a ton of seats between me and this other group. What do? They move within 1 seat of me and sit there.
That is unacceptable.
Oh my God. I
That's
was so
like
pissed.
peeing in the urinal next to someone when there's 8,000 open ones.
So now I'm like 1 seat over from this 8-year-old kid. There's a seat between us, but now he starts playing with the plastic lid on his drink, making this noise. And I'm looking at him, and he stops, and the dad's not doing anything about it. Right. And then I realize they have a dog. Michael, they have a dog. All right. I didn't notice it before because it was a pug. So it's a small little pug sitting there on the kid's lap. And I'm thinking, what the hell is this? Now don't get me wrong. I love dogs. I love pugs. I just don't love pugs in movie theaters.
No.
Okay.
I have Frenchies, so I know how they sound.
Yes.
It's obnoxious.
It is obnoxious anyway. And I'm thinking, well, what the hell is going on here? I mean, this movie has some gory kills in it.
Okay.
Right? We're talking about The Damned if you're just tuning in.
Now.
Yeah, well, right. It does. It actually has some cool things. And I'm thinking this is probably not appropriate for the kid. And then now we've got the dog. There's going to be loud sounds, and the dog's going to get, and I get the fact that some people
shit all over the place.
Well, that's what was my thought. Yeah. I was thinking that, and I realized you have service dogs and emotional support dogs, and I don't think this one was either one of those. I
don't
really
know if a
don't.
pug could be one.
I don't know either.
Because like I said, I have Frenchies, and I don't think any Frenchie is qualified to be a dog because they're assholes.
I know.
They're stubborn as hell. They're not going to do what you want.
No. So we get into the movie and we get to a quiet part, and now at this point the dog's asleep. How do I know the dog's asleep?
Because you can hear it snoring.
It's snoring, and it's not just quiet snoring. This is a pug snoring.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? What is happening here? I'm like in some
Do we have no standards anymore?
No, I know. People, leave your pugs at home, leave your dogs at home, leave your little kids at home in these really gory horror films, and don't sit next to me, whatever you do.
This all could have been avoided if they just would have stayed away.
I don't understand why they moved.
That's weird.
I have no idea why they even moved.
Yeah. That reminds me of I'll keep it quick because we don't need to have a whole podcast of this. But like that reminds me of when I went to see Scream 5.
Yeah.
And I was so excited.
Yeah.
And I had a mother who had probably like 7 children with her. And one of them was a goddamn baby. I had the baby in the car seat right there next to me. I was
great.
like, oh, hi. And then one of her other shitty kids was running up and down the aisle. And it made it worse because he had light up shoes. So I'm just seeing these stupid light up shoes out of my periphery.
Oh
It
my
was,
God.
It almost ruined the movie for
Yeah.
me, but not
Yeah.
quite.
Wow. Well, anyway, besides that, I was a little too quick to judge The Damned.
Okay.
I think it's worth a watch, and I think it's a great concept. And again, very atmospheric, very creepy.
Hell yeah.
And the performances were great. Sound design was amazing. I thought, yeah, it's a great watch. So waste your time and go see
Perfect. I'll
Yeah,
waste
yeah.
it then. Don't waste your time on this one movie I watched. It was called Billy Club. It's like it was a slasher from early 2000s. And it's got a really cool concept. And I won't say what happens, but what the killer does with the victims' bodies is also really cool.
Mhm.
So it had all these elements that could have been great, but just didn't. It was too low budget, just not good.
Right.
But it's about this little league team that one of the members' teammates messes up in a big game, and so they bully him, end up killing him, and then it's like comes back from the dead, revenge kind of plot, something like that. So, and he has a cool look. He's in this like old school like catcher uniform, and he has like this baseball bat with nails in it. So it had everything set up for it. It just couldn't execute any of it.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, so that was a bummer. And then yeah, that's really the only thing I watched besides Wicked 4 times. So
I had a feeling you were going to come back with
I
that.
love Wicked.
Yeah.
And it's a witch, and we're going to talk about a witch.
We are going to talk about a witch here with the Blair Witch Project. So the Golden Globes were this past Sunday night, and we talked about this last week that there were some nominees that we were watching very closely. In fact, Demi Moore was nominated for Best Actress, and I'm so pleased to say that she won.
Hell yes.
Right?
Thank God they did something right.
They really did. The movie did not win, but that's okay. At least Demi Moore, was able to pull off a win there, because when it comes to horror, sometimes
This
that
gets
is not-
shafted. It gets absolutely shafted. And so baby steps. Hey,
Yep.
like we can't expect it to sweep.
Right.
Big win is a big win, and so we'll take it in the horror community.
Exactly. Margaret Qualley was also nominated for The Substance as a supporting role. She did not win. That went to Zoe Saldana for Emilia Perez, which that movie actually won a bunch of awards.
Okay.
Have not seen it, but
Never heard of it.
Yeah. Hugh Grant was also nominated for Best Performance for Heretic. He also, unfortunately, did not win. So I think out of the 4 nominations for horror, only 1, but it was Demi Moore. So
Yeah, we'll take
congratulations
it.
to Demi Moore.
Love that.
Robert Eggers.
Mhm.
We talked about him obviously last week with Nosferatu.
Right.
And because of the success of this film, he basically can pick and choose whatever the hell he wants to do now.
Kind of, yeah.
He is now rumored to be working on, but I think it's more than a rumor, a remake of The Labyrinth.
As long as it doesn't have Bowie's pee-pee in it, I think I'll be fine. I don't know if I dislike the original, or I don't know how I feel about it.
Right?
It might be good. It might not be. I don't know. I mean, I'm curious. I kind of wish she was doing something else, but I'm intrigued.
Rumors of a remake of this have been rolling around for
That's been a
quite
long
while,
time.
but it'll be interesting to see his take on this film. He's writing and directing, apparently. It's going to reunite him with Schoen, who co-wrote his film Northman in 2022.
I guess I'm excited. I think I am. But it's not like super breaking news or anything, but I read a book a couple years ago by this author named Adam Caesar. And he's kind of like, he got to start on YouTube talking about horror movies, and then he started writing, and he's got a couple of breakthrough projects like A Clown in a Cornfield, which is a fun little slasher, and it's being directed by Eli Craig, who did Tucker and Dale.
Right.
So he's got some
That's
talent.
such a good movie.
It seems like it's going to be very different in tone from that, but I think he's proven he's got the talent. And it comes out May 9th, 2025. It's a fun little slasher. He's got 3 books now in that series. I've read the first 2, and I enjoy them, so I'm excited to see his first movie brought to like the big screen.
Right,
So I think it'll be cool.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, very good.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into our feature film this week, which was pretty groundbreaking when it came out in 1999. I remember seeing it in the theater when it came out. We are talking about the Blair Witch Project. And I think the very first film that was widely released and marketed primarily by the internet.
Right. Oh, totally. And it was they went above and beyond with this thing. Like they were really ahead of the time. They even did you know they made like a week or two before they released it, like a TV special about the Blair Witch, and they brought like their family on and like talked about them like they're dead. Like it's crazy. The
it really
level
is.
they went to.
Well, Heather Donahue, one of the stars in that, her mother actually was getting sympathy cards from people in the mail because they thought she was really dead because of this film. The BlairWitch.com website, which no longer exists, it actually moves you to the Lionsgate studio website now. But in its time, it was set up like a missing persons type website. Have you seen these people? And the story was so in depth and so real. A lot of people bought into this and thought it was real.
Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing, even today, the impact that it has had on cinema. Not the first found footage film to come out. There was one in 1980. It was Italian, and it was called Cannibal Holocaust. It's considered the first found footage film.
Very controversial.
Yes.
There was a scene that they pulled off where people were convinced that they killed a person, and like they were like investigated for it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They were. So that film came out, was not very well known at the time. Blair Witch is the first film that took these concepts and really just ran with it.
Right.
And it struck a chord. And again, the number has always changed over the years. You know, I had read originally it was made for like 25,000 and then 60,000. But I know when the studio bought it, they invested a few $100,000 more in marketing and everything else. But it was a cheap movie to make. And to go on and make over $250 million around the world. Yeah, like really was. Yeah. The stars were paid $500. Think about that, $500 for this film. Later, they were able to get a little bit more, the low 5-figure range. So we're talking maybe $10,000, $11,000 on a film that made that much money. They lost the rights to their own given name because they used their real names in this film.
Right.
So the studio had the intellectual right to their names.
Which is such a weird...
Unbelievable.
That seems so unethical.
So Heather Donahue, when there were rumors of a second film coming out, convinced the other two actors to sue the studio. And they each ended up with about $300,000 apiece, which...
I mean...
Not terrible, but considering how much this movie made,
how much they should
have made, should have been a lot more, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think so.
But studios are greedy, and what are you going to do?
Yep. So it's basically about three filmmakers who go out into the forest in Burkittsville, Maryland, to pursue the story of the Blair Witch, which was a completely made-up story. Although
but the town is real.
The town is real.
Yep.
It's still there. And they did use some real residents there in some of the early interviews that you see early on in the film.
Right.
I do know that the girl in the restaurant who talks about how her sister went to Blair High School was actually the director's sister.
Okay.
So there were some plants in there. Mary Brown was a plant. You know, they used a lot of people that they knew, friends and family, so they didn't have to pay them, I'm sure, because, again, for as little money as they had to make this, they couldn't afford to pay the number of people that you see in the credits. So I know that a lot of people, and I think there was some kind of a crowd fundraising thing that happened here too to help get this on its feet. But yeah, so they get lost in the woods. That's basically what they do for the whole movie. Lots of interesting stories to tell about this because the directors stayed out of their way. They stayed hidden for most of it.
Yeah.
The lines were pretty much all improvised. They kind of had a very vague guide of where they needed to go and what they needed. Certain things had to happen to keep the film going.
But other than that, it's basically just like, make it up.
Make it up. And that was one of the things in the audition notice that was said. It said you have to have very strong improvisational skills.
Yep.
When you come to this audition, there will not really be any written words, and there really weren't. So it's kind of interesting. And you see the performances, and it's pretty convincing.
They're honestly very, especially Heather, I think is like, I don't know if you've ever been around like a film student, but they act just like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like she is a film student.
She's a film student, definitely. And, you know, I wanted to reach out to Heather Donahue to be on the podcast and talk about this. I know that she had a lot of joy making this because improvisational acting is really what she did. She has a degree in theater. So I did want to reach out and talk to her, but it's kind of one of those deals where it was a blessing to be in the movie for her at the time, but the aftermath and the shit she had to deal with after the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, people coming up to her on the street demanding their money back from the movie because they blamed her for killing the other two actors in the film, thinking this
So
thing was
ridiculous.
real. The abuse that she got, and I know that a lot of this is sexism because she
Right.
was a
Oh,
woman,
for sure. Of
which
course.
is just I can't even wrap my head
No,
around
it's
that.
absolutely ridiculous.
And so she had to deal with a lot. She wasn't getting work. She, like I said, her mom was getting sympathy cards
Yeah.
because they thought, she had died, and then just all the other bullshit that she had to put up with. They couldn't even work or go out in public or do anything until the film was out there because they wanted people to really think that this was real and that they were dead.
Yeah. And imagine that though, $500 and you had to go into hiding. Like, how did they afford to live?
I know.
Like, it's
I know.
insane.
Exactly. So my heart goes out to her. I think she definitely got the worst of it.
Mhm.
And she's legally changed her name now.
Definitely has distanced herself from it completely.
Yeah. She lives on the East Coast. She actually, for a while, was growing pot down in Northern California.
Hell yeah,
I think in
she
Humboldt
was.
County. She's written a book about her life. I would love to talk to her, and maybe, she'll get wind of this and maybe want to talk about it. I don't know, but it was one of those things where I didn't really want to bother her about this.
Totally.
I wanted to be sensitive to that because, it really did change her life, and not in the best way. I mean, there was a quote from her saying that at one point she didn't even want to be alive anymore because
Damn,
of
it
all the
got
shit
that
she was
bad.
going through.
Shit.
So maybe one of these days we will talk to her, but she's got her own life now. She retired years and years and years
Good
ago.
for her.
She did do a couple of other things after Blair Witch. The other two actors did go on to do some other things. I know that Josh Leonard, actually, he was the one who has had a pretty prolific career in Hollywood. He's still working today. He's been in dozens of movies and a couple of dozen television shows as well. But I mean, he's always going to be known for Blair Witch.
The thing I love about Josh too, I don't know if you know this, is he lied about his ability to film.
Yes.
And so like there's this one shot where in the interview where it's blurry and like
with Mary Brown.
Yeah, and they like talk about it and like that was real. Like he fucked the shot up because he didn't know what he was doing. And so like the whole conversation, everything about that is like a legit fuck up on his part.
What's also funny is when he shows up to Heather's house, she comes out the front door and greets him. "Good morning, Mr. Punctuality." And in fact, he was about 45 minutes late to the shoot.
Hell yeah.
So that was all inside humor there.
Attaboy, Josh.
Yeah. Michael Williams was the other actor in this. He went on to do like an episode of Law and Order. He was in a movie in 2008 called The Objective. Very limited stuff. I mean, he's done a couple of things here in recent years, very few things, but nowhere near what Josh has done. And certainly, Heather, has done,
Even less. But yeah, we got they're in the woods now. And I think they first start off by looking for this Rustin Parr. Is that his name? The hermit?
Yeah.
But yeah, he abducted 7 children in 1941 and he murders them in his basement. Killing them in pairs, so they have to one of them has to watch the other die. So that's sounds like a great dude.
Yeah, exactly. So they get going in the woods. They ended up getting lost, and they did actually get lost
Oh, they did?
a few times
That's
in real
real?
life. In fact, at the very beginning, when they get out of their car, immediately they're walking in the wrong direction from where they're supposed to go. So right out of the gate, they're totally lost.
That's how I would be in the woods. I'd be like, I'm supposed to go this way, right?
Mhm.
No.
And
if you give me directions like north, east, west, that means nothing to me.
And so they're going along and, they get lost and they end up having to spend more nights than what they had planned in the woods. And at night, things start to happen. They start hearing voices.
Yeah, there's
They
like
start hearing
children's
noises.
laughter, weird stuff like that.
Exactly. And the directors had pre-recorded all of this thing and they had boom boxes in basically far, far away from the camp, but cranking them up so they could hear the sounds. They weren't really telling them much. I mean, the directors, again, were staying out of their way.
Right.
And just playing all of these sounds. There was one scene where the entire tent starts to shake and it wakes them up. Well, they didn't know that was going to happen.
Right.
And those were the directors and the production people. Then they just scattered.
I'm not like a big woodsy person. So like that, even if I knew I'm making a movie, like that shit would scare me.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be okay.
No, I wouldn't either.
I would have quit.
I mean, you're still in the woods.
Yeah.
I mean, now there is a shot. It's quite a ways into the film where you can actually see a field between a couple of trees, and then there's a road on the other side of it. So, I mean, granted, but they're still out in the middle of nowhere
Right.
in Maryland in this forest. And so they're camping out. They don't know what's going to happen. And as the shoot goes on, the directors are giving them less and less food each day. So now they're getting hangry on top of that.
They need a Snickers.
They need something. They need something. And so they're actually starting to lose their tempers with each other. And that was real.
Yeah.
And
it felt real. It felt authentic.
And there was one time where the directors actually had to rush onto set to break them up and calm them down because it was getting so heated. And they felt bad for Heather because the two guys were kind of ganging up on her.
Well, she refused to admit that they were lost.
Well, she did.
That
She
was
did.
irritating me. Even as just watching, I was like,
Yeah.
just admit it.
Exactly.
Admit it.
But again, this is a film. It's
I
not
get it.
real. And I mean, their performances were real because they're being exposed to real elements and they're reacting. I mean, this is really an amazing, thing to watch happen. I mean, so they're reacting honestly and they're starting to get pissed at each other and it just gets worse as they go on.
Did you know that they were given a safe word though for when things got too bad?
Yes.
And it was taco.
It was taco. Yeah. Yeah. Which is great. They were encouraged to stay in character at all times, even when the cameras weren't running,
Right.
just so that they could maintain this story. So, I mean, under those circumstances, it was pretty amazing what they were able to do. And again, the performances are very genuine,
Right.
They're very real.
And it's basically just, I mean, it's so crazy that this plot is just nights in the woods and then just a couple things happen here or there. So, I mean, we talked about like there's rustling, there's this and that, and nothing really happens until they do lose the map at one point. I think Mike actually just like punts it into the lake for some reason.
Yeah, he kicks the map into the creek because they're looking for the map. And he denies that they're blaming Heather. Oh, we gave it back to you. You still have it.
Right.
And she's now so distraught because there's no map. And again, that was not scripted. That was something that Michael was told to do after they had started filming. He said they told him, directors told him, steal the map, get rid of it, and then lie about it.
Nice.
The other two had no idea what was going on.
They're just pitting them against each
They
other.
were. They really were to get these
little instigators.
Absolutely. There's another scene where they walk 14 hours in a day and they end up back in the same place where they started from. And that was also, those reactions they had to that were real because they didn't know that's where they were going to end up again. I don't know if they were directed to go in a certain route that would place them back at the very beginning. But when they realized they were back, they were seriously upset because they had no idea they were going to end up right where they had started earlier that day.
Wasted their day walking
absolutely
for
wasted.
14
Yes.
miles.
They did. 14
I'd like
hours.
to think that they had like a Hansel and Gretel breadcrumb trail that they just followed.
Well, I would think that maybe that was part of it, that maybe that they did do that to keep them, because there has to be some kind of structure to this movie.
Right.
To
It
keep
can't
it
just be
on track.
chaos.
Right. So maybe that did happen and they had, some way for them to stay on a certain trail and end up in a certain location by a certain time.
Right. There had to be some sort of thing. But it's kind of crazy. One of the biggest moments, because I don't know how much plot we really want to talk about because there's not much. So it's like, you just want to get to like when shit actually starts to really happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So one of the biggest times is Josh. He kind of goes missing. And when does he die? I'm not entirely sure.
So let's do this right now just to get it out of the way, even though we don't really know what's
this
going
is
on
a
here.
weird.
Yeah.
The opening kill.
Yeah, because first of all, you don't see any kills in this. We know there's 3 of them. All 3 filmmakers, die at the end, but we just don't know when Josh dies. We know he goes missing.
Right.
And then eventually they find him. Do they find him?
They find his teeth.
They find his teeth.
But
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a
you can
tooth.
survive without teeth.
You can.
And so
You
I
can.
don't know. I don't know when he dies, but he
No.
dies at some point, and so there's our opening kill.
So they're lured to this house in the middle of the woods. It's a 2-story house. It was the Griggs house, which was a historic home located in Granite, Maryland. It was a 2-story house. It was built in the mid-19th century. And this is the house that they filmed the final scene of the Blair Witch Project in.
Right.
So it had been abandoned forever. In fact, the interior walls, vandals had gone in and ripped walls out. They'd ripped out.
Yeah, it looks like shit.
Oh, it did. Yeah, exactly. It was a perfect location
Oh,
for this
yeah.
scene, but they had gone in there and just totally stripped this house. And so that's where they filmed this final scene. Sadly, this house, and this really bummed me out when I learned this, was demolished. And they were going to do it anyway because so many fans of the show had found the house and they were going in. Well, it was deteriorating even
Right,
faster
it
because of
became
all the people.
a liability.
Yeah, I get that. But fans wanted to raise money to save the house. And so the state of Maryland released a press announcement saying that the property would be spared. And then like that, they went in under the cover of darkness and demolished it without announcing it. So I think they wanted to appease everybody and get them off their backs. And in the meantime, they had no plans of
Right.
saving the house. So they just went in and
Yeah, we'll
leveled
save it. Fuck them. Let's go
Yeah,
get it.
that's pretty much what they did. Yeah, right. So that's what happened with the Griggs house, but a very cool location. So, you see Michael, he's got his camera, he's going into the house, he goes upstairs. We never really see Josh.
No, you hear him screaming every other night, like, and this is one night where he's screaming too, and like they're trying to follow his voice, but they can't. Every time they think they've got it like locked in, it comes from somewhere else. So
Right.
it's very disorienting for him. And yeah, he's just hollering and screaming all night.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then the next thing you see is somebody whacks Michael and the camera hits the floor and there's silence.
Mm-hmm.
And then Heather comes in to the room and he's standing in the corner. And that was one of the stories that was told earlier in the film, how the kids were lined up and put in a corner.
Right.
And
Exactly.
so she sees Michael standing in the corner, or was it Josh? I don't know.
It was Mike,
Well,
yeah.
I think it was Michael. And then the next thing you know, she gets whacked and then her camera hits and then it cuts to black and we're in the credits.
Right.
So that's it. Yeah.
3 deaths.
Yeah. You know what's interesting though? She was nominated for a Blockbuster Entertainment Award for Favorite Actress Newcomer and an Online Film Critics Society Award for Best Actress. But then she was nominated for Worst Actress at the Stinkers Bad Movie Awards, and she actually won in the same category at the Golden Raspberry Awards. And I will tell you, just watching this and realizing that it was completely improvised, how could you? I mean, I thought they were incredible performances for not having a script. That's just them out there making this shit up as they go.
Yeah. I'm not a hater on the Razzies. They're kind of funny to me, but like there's performances and movies that get like hit with the Razzie that I don't understand at all.
Same.
And this would be one of those
Yep.
where I'm just like what? Like, there's so much worse.
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking? What are we doing here, folks?
Yep. Totally agree. Totally agree with that. So, not really worth mentioning Blair Witch 2 Book of Shadows.
Probably not.
It was not a found footage film. It was an actual studio scripted film, which in my opinion was kind of terrible.
Weird way to take too. Like that's I don't get that.
Yep. They did do another one, Blair Witch in I believe 2016,
Yes.
which was basically Heather's brother going out trying to find her in the woods. And that actually was not a bad film.
I need to rewatch it, but I remember it. I remember being like, this is pretty damn solid.
Yeah, and it did well. I mean, it was made for about $5 million and made around, I think it made around something like 50 million. I mean,
Perfect.
it
Yeah,
did
that's great.
well. It was certainly better than Book of Shadows was. Book of Shadows, yeah, it was just weird. This one actually made more sense. And I think it really does. This one ignores everything that came out in Book of Shadows. So it's just kind of a direct sequel to
That's
the original Blair Witch.
probably wise.
Yeah, I think so too. So I would recommend that one. There's still talk about rebooting it again. And actually the 3 actors, when they heard about a possible reboot, were like, whoa, time out. We want some money here.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. So, but, and she did say that, I think it was Lionsgate Studio, reached out to her and apologized for all the shit that she went through
Well, that's good.
and basically said they were not going to use their real names anymore because of everything. And I wish they had come to that conclusion a lot sooner.
Yeah. I
You know?
don't think they should have done
A lot
that.
of money. And I mean, a film that came out and really kind of turned a lot of heads. And
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember conversations on the playground about this being like, kind of theorizing, being like, what was that real? Like, did they die? There was so many conversations. I remember it very vividly.
Yeah.
I remember the website,
Mm-hmm.
and like I didn't actually see it back then. It was my mom.
You were like 3, right?
Yeah, and my mom just was like, wasn't cool and didn't take me to the theater in my car seat. So I didn't see it till later, but I remember the conversations and the website specifically.
I do remember the website, and again, the internet had not been out that long,
it was
actually,
pretty new.
so it was pretty new. And to be able to do this for a film and make it for as little money as they did, and market it the way they did, and blow it up, I mean, it's pretty astounding. And there were people in the movie theater, because it's all handheld shots. People were reportedly getting nauseous because of the shaky camera, and were having to flee to go vomit.
I believe it because they hadn't seen anything like that
No.
before.
No,
like
not
now
like
it's
this.
pretty common, but
Yeah.
like back then, like your brain is probably just like, what is happening?
Yep.
I can't process this.
Yeah. So anyway, if Heather Donahue, aka Ray Hance, is listening, or you want to talk to us about this movie, we would love to have you on. I just didn't, out of respect, didn't want to bring up what could be a very touchy subject. And,
Yeah, I have questions I want to ask, like how they didn't know the lyrics to "Lose Yourself" by Eminem.
Yeah.
I love that scene. Like they're like, isn't it like Dad's mashed potatoes or something?
You know, the most expensive effect in this entire movie was when, I can't remember if it was Josh, I think it was Josh, sang the theme to Gilligan's Island, and they had to get the rights to that to get, for permission to do
Right.
that was the most expensive thing they had to pay for out of this whole film. So
you said, like, yeah, I was like, wait, was there a special effects scene? And
that was,
yeah.
okay, I shouldn't have said special effects, but
I mean,
that was that was what they had to spend a ton of money on.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And did you know, like, because obviously it doesn't show the witch in this movie,
Right.
but did you know that the McFarlane Toys put out a Blair Witch figure? So you
No.
were able to see what she looks like. And it makes me so mad that she wasn't in this movie, because the design is incredible. And I'm someone who, like, I prefer to see it.
Mhm.
Like, I want to see the creature.
Sure.
And so, like, that is a huge bummer for me. And even with like a movie like Bird Box, that's the most recent example where they didn't show the creature.
Mhm.
I'm like, please just do it. I don't care. I don't care what your final design is. I want to see what you had out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty funny. Blair Witch Project 1999. If you have not seen it, and I'm sure you have, but it's always fun to watch. And they did use some locals, but a lot of those were plants that they put in there. And did you know that the sign for the name of the town as you're entering the town, "Welcome to Burkittsville," was stolen 3 times?
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean,
they've had to
it
replace
is a piece of film history.
It really
so, I mean,
is.
like, I get it.
Yep, it really
People
is.
steal street signs on stuff like that all the time. So,
Yeah.
may as well.
And that house scene, Heather Donahue said it was the most terrifying scene. And she actually got anxiety and cried. And, for even after they were done with the movie, because it scared her so bad being in that house and going through all that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
And also, a thing about that house, did you know at the end, they did do a studio mandated reshoots,
mhm.
and it was just like different versions of Mike in that basement.
Okay.
So there's one
Yeah.
where he's like crucified, which
Right.
looks sick. And then there's like a couple of other like just small differences. They did end up going with the original one.
Right.
The original one was just him in the corner.
Mhm.
So they wasted their time with the reshoots. But I think the crucified one, I'm like,
Oof.
I mean, I get it. It doesn't fit with the Rustin Parr hermit story.
Yeah.
So I get why they did it, but
Right.
it was a cool image. I'm like, that's pretty badass.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
Pretty cool stuff. Yeah. And I mean, when you're making a horror film, generally you're surrounded by a small army of crew, and you've got lights, you've got producers, director, and everybody else around you. So it's not that scary. But in this case,
To have just 3 people.
you're it with your own camera and your own light, and you're in the middle of nowhere. I mean, that's going to freak you out.
No, absolutely. I
Totally.
would not have been well if
Yeah,
I was
no,
a
I
part
don't
of
think
this
so
movie.
either.
So yeah, Blair Witch Project. What do you rate it? Like, what's your rating for it?
I give it an A.
A? Oh, damn.
For
okay.
originality and for the performances, because they really were genuine. And these guys, all 3 of them, guys and girl, to improvise, all of these scenes and be so real about it. Yeah, I just think it was, and just because it was just so, I mean, it was new. It was,
Right.
we hadn't really seen anything like this before. So yeah, I give it a solid A.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I appreciate the hell out of this movie. I appreciate what they did. But as far as like enjoyment, I do have it like 2.5 stars. I would have bumped it up to 3.5 if they showed The Witch just right off the bat. But it did feel like a little bit like you're getting dry humped for like 70 minutes, and then you get some action for the last 3.
It's interesting because sometimes, I mean, especially in horror films, what you can't see scares you the most.
See, I never felt that.
Really?
I'm always like, show me.
Okay.
Like, I'm very visual.
Right.
Like, my imagination ain't that great.
Jaws was a great example of that. You don't see the shark until way far into the movie.
But it's like, you know what a shark looks like.
You do, but you still want to kind of see what's going on.
For sure.
And the fact that you can't see it or you don't see it until, as far in this one, you never see it.
Yeah, but they do show it in Jaws. So, like, I feel like if they even would have just a glimpse, like a distant shot where, like, oh, there's that figure off in the distance.
Agreed.
Something. I needed it. I needed it.
Yeah, totally. So a great movie. And if you want to see I would skip Book of Shadows. It has nothing to do really with the original. But if you do want to watch Blair Witch from 2016, I recommend that too. I thought it was well done.
Yeah, and I think they do show something in it.
There's something. It's been a lot of years since I've seen it, and I do like it. I would give it a B. I wouldn't give it an A. I thought it was well done, but not as good as the original. The original was just so the original was original.
Right. Imagine that. But no, and it's so influential. You have to give it its props for that.
Coming up, we have the Scare Preview. Michael and I each week choose a movie that we are excited to tell you about, and that is coming up next.
Welcome to Jaunty Haunts, the podcast about all things supernatural. After 30 years of keeping a secret, I'm finally ready to share with the world that I see ghosts. This podcast is all about getting spooky and connecting with others who might also sense, see, or feel things beyond the ordinary. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, let's connect, share, and maybe feel a little less crazy together.
You can listen to and binge Jaunty Haunts right now on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you podcast. Stay spooky, ghoul friends.
All right, so the Scare Preview. This is the segment that we talk about upcoming horror films that we're kind of excited about. And mine is a movie called Sinners. Stars Michael B. Jordan. He's in a dual role. He plays twin brothers.
Okay.
Alongside Haley Steinfeld.
Oh.
According to Warner Brothers, the film is about two brothers, again, both played by Jordan, who return to their hometown to start again, only to realize an evil is awaiting them. So the film was wrapped last July. It's scheduled to be released in theaters April 18th. And considering most horror films are made from anywhere between like $16 and $35 million, the fact that this one was made for almost $100 million, yeah, this is a pretty big deal.
Better be some impressive effects.
I would think so. Written and directed and produced by Ryan Coogler. He's actually co-written and directed films like the Rocky spin-off Creed and the Marvel film Black Panther. So
that's how he knows Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah,
He's worked with him before. Okay,
exactly.
Cool.
Yeah, so looking forward to that again. April 18th, the release date for Sinners.
All right, that sounds I'm intrigued. I am excited about this movie coming out. It's called Opus. Now, it is starring one of my favorite TV actresses at the moment, Ayo Edebiri. She's in The Bear, and she is incredible in The Bear. It's also got John Malkovich.
Okay. I love John Malkovich.
Who doesn't? He's incredible. And also Juliette Lewis. So it's got a pretty damn good cast.
Right on.
It's directed by Michael Anthony Green, and it is about a young writer who is invited to the remote compound of a legendary pop star who mysteriously disappeared 30 years ago. And then is surrounded by the star's cult and a intoxicated journalist, and they find themselves in the middle of this crazy twisted plan. So it's vague. I don't really know what it's. I'm intrigued. I'm excited. I love the cast. So that one's coming out in March.
Right on. That sounds exciting. Yeah. So some good stuff coming out. 2024 was actually a really good year for horror films.
Oh yeah.
So I'm hoping 2025 can follow with that. I mean, we'll see what comes out this year. So that is going to wrap it up for episode 7 of Opening Kill, where we talked about the Blair Witch Project and got an exciting film coming up next week for you.
Yeah, we've got the Thing, not the 80s one, but the one from 2011.
Which was actually a prequel to the original one.
It leads directly into the original one.
Yeah.
I'm excited to cover this one. I think it's pretty damn good. It got a lot of hate, but I don't think it was warranted.
Right.
Personally. Great cast in it as well. So I'm excited to talk about it. It is The Thing from 2011, and be sure to follow us on all our social media. We just talked about how good a year 2024 was on our socials. We each did a list of our favorite movies.
Yeah,
so you can check out that post, see if you agree with our list or not.
Yep.
If you want. And so follow us on all our socials and email us if you have a question or you want to maybe recommend a movie. openingkillpod@gmail.com.
We would love to hear from you. Like and subscribe. Tell all your friends and family about us, and keep the subscribers coming in to Opening Kill.
Yeah, subscribe. That is like the best thing you could do for the show. It helps a lot.
Absolutely. We appreciate it. Have a great week. We will talk to you next Thursday with The Thing.
The Opening Kill podcast is hosted by Michael Duran and Brian O'Connor. It's produced by Mystic Cloud Productions. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram too. Join us next Thursday for a brand new episode.